We are Michael and Courtney and Ilva Gutschenreiter, and the three of us own Three Brothers Farm in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. And we are a 100-acre pasture-based farm where we raise laying hens for eggs, sheep, and cattle, and grow about an acre of flowers for Courtney's floral business. So the actual chicken tractor with the coop itself, we didn't design, but they're from Prairie Schooners LLC. And so it's a kit, but we designed the fencing system around the coops. So we bought the schooners thinking that we would just run broilers in it, and then we realized that it was such an awesome design that we could add on whatever we wanted and modify it to an extreme, and it's become the foundation of our laying hen operation now. We have 3 coops all running side by side, and they're 2 different age flocks. They all have their own fencing, and they all have their own nest boxes, feeders, and it takes us about 15 minutes each morning to move just under 3,000 laying hens. For the first 5 years, we used Premier One fencing, and we put every post into the ground. It ended up taking us about 6 hours a week to move all of the fencing. We went from 9 to 10 hours of putting fence in and the labor of hauling these fences down to 15 minutes a morning, and almost very little labor involved. So the way we move our birds is the 3 of us come out every morning between 7 and 7:30, and I drive the tractor, and I back it right up to the front of the tractor, hook it up with logging chains to the 2 front corners. So the 2 front corners are connected to the tractor with logging chains, and we take the posts out of the 4 corners of the fencing so it sags a little bit, and the posts go into the pipes at the base so they're not dragging. And then Courtney and Ilva are at the back of the fencing, and we can see each other through the coop, and we made sure that there's clear visibility there. And we just give each other hand signals because the birds are loud and the tractor's loud. So we give a thumbs up when we're both ready to go, when all 3 of us are ready to go. Ilva is especially good at giving the thumbs up. And when that thumbs up is confirmed, we drive forward as slowly as the tractor can go. And Courtney will be at the back kind of bouncing the fence to spook the birds forward a little bit, and making sure that we don't smash any ground eggs that happen to be there from the morning, which are very few anyway. And once we've gone the full length of about 70 feet, we give each other another hand signal, which is this, and that means we're complete. And at that point, I take the posts out of all 4 corners and stake them into the ground, and that tightens up the entire fence. So we don't actually use PVC because PVC gets brittle in cold weather and after a lot of UV exposure. So we use drainage pipe, which is HDP, high density poly, and it's cheaper than PVC, it's lighter weight, and it's very easy to move. It's UV stable, and it doesn't crack under cold conditions, and it's very easy to drill into. So what we do is add wooden chunks of wood post at the union of every 10-foot piece of drainage pipe, and that's on the inside of the pipe. So when the pipe goes together, inside of it is about an 18-inch chunk of 4-inch wood post. And the wooden posts are, well, we buy them at 8 feet and we cut them into 18-inch chunks. And the drainage pipe is 10 feet. So when we connect them, we screw the drainage pipe to the wood, and so it's seamless. And then we drill we drill into the pipe and through the wood, and that way we can put the Premier One fencing directly into it. So there's some substance for it to hold on to. And we drill the holes a little bit smaller than the stakes of the fence. So we really slam them in there with a dead blow hammer. So they're not coming out at all. It takes a pry bar to get them out. And then the corners, you can either use PVC, which tends to break, or you can use a rubber corner, a 90-degree rubber plumbing corner, and that for us has worked a lot better because it allows some flex, and you want the flex to happen as you're moving the pen so that it doesn't break. So it's the pipe is light enough so that Courtney can really kind of slam it on the ground and spook the birds forward. It's also light enough to where we can lift it up and put a milk crate under around sunset. And so any birds that have been spooked and gotten out or figured out a way to get out, which is 5 or 6 a day out of 3,000, all those birds will go towards the milk crate and back into the coop. So we don't have to actually handle many birds at all each day. But the pipe is also heavy enough to lie flat on the pasture and cover up most of the undulations from the bunch grass, and so the birds can't get under it. And if we do go over a rut or something, we'll just fill that with a feed bag or something like that. Pretty straightforward, but it's pretty obvious when you're on a rut because then you'll have 100 birds out. What we're trying to do there, this is brand new. We've been using the hen pens for the whole summer, but the shade cloth is new as of this week. So I built this whole metal structure to come off of the back of the Prairie Schooner, and it goes down to wheels so it can roll right along. The whole thing is 30 feet by 20 feet, and then shade cloth over it. And it's built so that Courtney and I can still see each other through the coop. The goal with that was to create a more even distribution of hen impact on the pasture, because the birds really like to be in the shade. So we found that, for the past 7 years since we've been doing chickens, the manure is always concentrated right at the coop, because that's where the shade is. So we're trying to create as much shade as possible so the manure and the scratching gets distributed among the entire fencing area. Otherwise, that fenced area is what I consider to be waste. So what we found is that the chickens will eat the grass, but not a ton of it. They mostly trample the grass and lay manure on it. And the red clover, they'll eat most of it, depending on the life stage of the clover. If it gets tough, they eat less of it, which isn't necessarily bad for the pasture or the chickens. Actually, the more pasture that you have, the more rest that you've given the pasture before bringing the chickens on, the better it's going to come back. So we've found that if we get regular rain, maybe twice a week or even once a week, the manure really gets down to the roots of the pasture grasses and clover and bounces back within 5 to 7 weeks. So really, after 7 weeks, it's really ready to graze with the sheep or cattle. Yeah, it stays how it is. We don't roll it down, although we can. When we're expecting 50-mile-an-hour winds, then we roll everything down and make sure that the whole thing doesn't become a kite. The netting itself, the fencing, we don't electrify, but it is electrifiable. We have a perimeter fence, a 6-strand electric fence. It'd be really easy just to tap into that, but we choose not to because that's an extra step, and we haven't had ground predators attack our chickens ever since we've put up the perimeter fence and had our Maremma guard dogs out with them. And the guard dogs sleep next to the coops by choice.
How many dogs do you have?
We have 2 Maremmas. Yep. Whenever we're designing something for our farm, we do a lot of thinking first, and whereas we used to just kind of start buying stuff and making it work, we've really started to design stuff and talk about it every day and keep it in our heads until we're 99% sure that it's going to work. And so we're not wasting money. We know that we're going to be saving time and money in the long run, and then we don't have a bunch of junk around our farm. As beginning farmers, for the first 5 years, we were less into that. We were I specifically was very excitable, and so I would just jump into something, and I feel like I wasted a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of energy. And now I'm way more into thinking about it every time I'm doing something inefficiently. I like to think, how can I do this better? How can we do this better? How can we assure that we can do this when we're 50 years old? And because we're going to have a little bit less energy, and we're going to be less inclined. And what we also think about is, how can we make it easy and fun to do so that we know that we can do it every single day. We used to not move our birds every day because we weren't set up to do it. We would take a lot of planning and thinking every single day. Whereas now we know that we're bringing our tractor out every day and we're going to move them. It takes 15 minutes. We don't have to set aside a 2-hour chunk to move 14 fences. So that's a really important thing for us, is just plan to get it into our routine. Otherwise it won't happen every day, and your pasture suffers, your birds suffer, your animals suffer, and ultimately your profitability suffers.